Hello and welcome to Eat Sleep Code, the official Telerik podcast. I'm your host, Ed Charbeneau, and with me today is not only my co-host John Bristowe, but a special guest, Alyssa Nicole. Welcome to the show.
Hello, hello.
We got some extra heavy material to cover this week. Usually we do like topical news things, but we got a pretty big State of CSS, what do you call it, survey results to kind of analyze. So I brought in our CSS resident expert at Progress, Alyssa, to help us with that analysis.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. We better step up our game.
Hashtag no pressure, right? Like what?
Things are getting serious. We got big brains coming in here, so this is gonna be interesting for us.
Well, let's see how this goes because I have some quick news like announcements to go through real quick just before we begin. And in the tradition of our usual show, I have one question for John, and that's what the heck's going on in Australia, man?
Oh, these guys are
wanders into Australian families' home and climbs their Christmas tree.
Sure, why not? You know, they're everywhere.
Is this what happens in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, pretty much all the time. You gotta sweep them out with a broom, basically, because they're everywhere. No, I mean, you don't see them that much as you'd think. So we've looked for them. We've been on family drives, and we live in Queensland. We've driven through New South Wales and Queensland a lot, and you don't see them as often as you'd think. They're kind of like, it's like seeing a moose or a deer. It's kind of like, whoa, hey, there you go, and you see those warning signs, but generally you don't see them that often.
I don't know if I believe that, John, because there's literally a team dedicated to this. Apparently, the koala rescue folks had to come.
Oh.
Yeah, that does happen. So, unfortunately, koalas do get hit by cars from time to time. They're not the fastest moving animal. They are pretty lazy as well. Interesting fact about koalas: did you know that they have 2 thumbs on each hand? So, yeah, they do sometimes get hit by cars, unfortunately, and doubly unfortunately. Australia's always on fire. As you know, we had those big fires hit us earlier this year, and unfortunately, a lot of koalas and wildlife, in addition to that, perished in those fires. So, we got to do everything we can to make sure that we protect them. So, if that includes putting Christmas trees around, letting them camp out there, I guess that's fine.
I still don't believe you, John. I think this is the Australian elf on the shelf.
All right.
That's the best reason to put up a Christmas tree.
Sure, why not?
Koalas, you know.
You know, funny thing about Christmas in Australia is that Aussies still sing Christmas carols. So they're like singing Dancing Through the Snow, and it's like 40 degrees out, like where I guess it's like 110 degrees out Fahrenheit. And you're just looking around, you're like, as a Canadian, I'm just looking around like, you guys realize what these lyrics say, right? Like, you know, silent night with all the snow falling, and you know, it's okay. We're up against the campfire with a cup of cocoa. Meanwhile, you're in Australia, everyone's just sweating like crazy. So,
hey, Saul.
We've got good old Chris DeMars in the chat room joining us for our crazy news. We're talking about your favorite thing today, Chris. That's CSS, my friend.
Oh, I thought you were going to say his favorite thing's koalas.
Koalas.
Yeah,
no,
that too.
But in keeping tradition with the show, Alyssa hasn't been able to witness this, so I thought I would save one more news clipping for her this week. So we should play this out. On this week's Can It Play Doom? So apparently somebody took a regular old Sega Genesis Mega Drive and hacked it to see if it would play. Well, probably hacked it to do many things, but one of the first things they decided to do was see if it could play Doom.
Sure.
So play might be a little bit of an overstatement.
Frame rate looks bad,
but
yeah, it's like one frame per second there.
They tried. I thought.
Oh man, I had one of those. They were awesome.
I thought this was an interesting take on the what we might as well play it again because it's such an awesome intro. John loves that intro. He asked me to play it multiple times per show, so yes, I just thought I'd do him the extra favor there. But yeah, so apparently you could play Doom on a hacked Sega Mega Drive.
Perfect.
In announcements this week, we have the CSS Advent calendar, and this is done by Matt Groves every year for the last 3, maybe 4 years. I think it's the 4th year now. fourth annual C# Advent calendar. So if you're learning C# or love C#, this is the place to go. It's at csadvent.christmas. Got a new URL and landing page. The idea here is every day throughout the holiday season, 2 articles are posted on the website from authors through the .NET ecosystem. So we've got 2 brand new articles each day. Make sure you go in there and check those out. Looks like there's some good stuff we should cover on the show next week, John. So there's lots of good posts in there that we can talk about, and lots of authors lined up to do some more. And look at
I like
this.
it.
We got some big names in there, like that one and that one. Sam Basu. I know that guy from somewhere. So let's switch gears to what everybody's actually here for. The state of CSS.
Yes.
So the gist of the state of CSS, like the state of JavaScript survey, it's sent out to the general public. It was pretty heavily shared on Twitter. And if you're a developer that touches C#, hopefully you got a chance to weigh in on some of these questions that they asked. They asked things like, what type of frameworks do you use? What CSS selectors are you aware of? Features that you know? Those type of things. So I thought it'd be pretty interesting to have kind of a consensus with us to see if it lines up with some of the assumptions we had for the state of CSS.
Nice.
See if we can get zoomed in here pretty good.
Dude, I don't know if you all went through that thing, but it was thick.
It is. It's not. I don't think it's as big as the state of JavaScript is, but it's still pretty beefy.
Yeah, the heritage for this is around the state of JavaScript. The two folks that run this, they decided just to lift out that template and apply it to CSS. I think it's a great template for running surveys, and they've been doing that for a few years. And state of CSS, why not?
Yep. Yeah, of course, if you want to support them, by the way, I did skip past this for the show here. They do have T-shirts available. Helps to support what they're doing. So that's always good. So this is the countries by region. It looks like it was pretty heavily answered by English-speaking folks. A lot of it in the U.S. and looks like there's quite a bit of influence in Europe and Russia in the survey as well. So that's kind of expected, I think, in my opinion, just because of the way this was shared out. I think it hit a lot of those folks.
Sure.
Salary. This one surprised me a little bit. And then again, maybe not. Depends on how you look at the demographics where this landed. The CSS salaries landed in the high 100K area, it looked like. So 50 to 100K was like the median, it looks like here. We've got 100 to 200K. A couple lucky folks there making over 200K doing CSS work.
I mean, that's, first of all, incredible. Secondly, who's doing just CSS work? Like, let's get real. Whose job title is like, I don't want to touch markup. I don't want to touch your functionality, whatever you got going on there. I'm just writing your styles. Like, is that a job? Because last I checked, there was nothing out there like that.
I know a guy that's his dream. Don't give me your JavaScripts, right, Chris? Yes. No, I think you're right on, Alyssa. If we continue to look at these, we'll see that kind of validated, I believe. So let me get some of these notifications quit popping up.
Man,
years of experience.
So that's incredible.
Yeah, years of experience. It's in the pretty high range as well. A lot of people are doing CSS dev for years now. John, I know you and I remember the web before CSS. Unfortunately.
Sure. Yeah, I think it was the mid '90s CSS kind of came about. So I've been doing it for a long time.
Was that a scary CSS to be in?
No, it was like pretty much all the W3C specs that were coming out then and then afterwards. Some of you just shrug your shoulders, and some of you read and you're like, I don't understand why I need this. It's hard. So I just need animated GIFs. That's the most important thing.
I was trying to explain to Alyssa on another show we were doing how we used to make layouts with tables.
Sure.
Like HTML tables, not CSS tables, but HTML.
Yeah, you kids
tables.
with your divs, you have no idea what tables could do. Seriously.
It was a fun conversation. It was kind of like, what? You did what now?
I'm of course speaking before, layout and Flexbox and all that stuff. So
yeah, we did. We talked about like how you did rounded corners by putting like GIFs
you put
in
blank
the corners of the
blank
tables.
images. I remember you used to load a 1x1 pixel, and you'd make it transparent, and then what you'd do is you'd stretch that. So you'd say length and width, and then you would adjust that accordingly to make rounded corners and such. It was total hacky.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Chris remembers those days.
It's just like shaving, you're rounding around, but you're doing it like one hair at a time.
I think it'll be the next big CSS and JavaScript framework is to go back to that.
Okay, perfect. 1x1 transparent pixels. It's funny because the marketers got their hands on that, and they use that for fingerprinting user agents now. But that's what we did back in the day to get sort of like transparency with tables. So, anybody
have a take on company size here?
Meh.
Yeah.
The demographics is not terribly interesting to me. I care more about what people are doing.
Agreed. There are some other interesting bits in here in the demographics part.
Where you ladies at?
I know. Thank you, Alyssa. We need more folks like Alyssa. This is not a good showing here.
But again, it's really only whoever. I wish it was like a mandatory. Like every developer every year must take the state of survey, like that would, then we could get a real, I would love that, but I guess.
Yeah. And it could, I think to your point, be how it was shared, but I don't think it's going to affect it in like a heavy way. It'd probably skew the numbers a little bit better, I hope. But I don't think it would, change it. Definitely wouldn't be something like 50-50. There's for sure a lot of work that could be done there. And on this one as well, right? Exactly. So diversity, right. Both gender and ethnicity could use a lot of improvement in the industry as a whole still. Is kind of reflected here in the demographics as well. Job titles, we got front-end dev, full stack. So Alyssa, you said when we were looking at the data for salary, how many of these people are doing more than just CSS? And if we look, it looks like at least 25% of the folks were doing full stack dev.
See, so I'm surprised. Is that 3% are CTOs doing CSS?
Looks like it.
Wow.
Hey, never know. Never know. There are more CTOs using CSS apparently.
That's pretty sad.
UX designers.
Designers.
All right. Where's Webmaster in this, John? We're talking about this.
They're busy. They're busy writing their text files, I guess. So
is that a familiar term with you, Alyssa? Webmaster.
I don't know what you're saying.
Contact your webmaster. That was a common refrain back in the 90s.
This is before we had a proper job title.
Wait,
master.
Would we be webmasters, or is that like sysadmin? Like, what is that?
Yeah, it's kind of the 90s name of sysadmin. So you'd see it at the bottom of websites, like, contact, if you have problems with this site, contact the webmaster.
I kind of want to like add that into like a site I'm building right now, just like in the footer.
Yep. Oh, there's classic sort of stuff you can put if you're doing an homage to the 90s.
Oh, that's beautiful. So wow, yeah, this surprising. I'm surprised by the job titles. Is there one of these categories just CSS, HTML, like Salt, or no? Was that even
I
a
think
category?
front end developer maybe, but it doesn't specify that you don't use JavaScript.
So many like Angular and React jobs labeled as like front end developer, and you're doing like
fair enough.
How much CSS? So it's guessbook.
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 Love it.
Nice one, Chris.
It's because we had nothing. We had nothing. We were look. The reason why I had things like guestbooks is because no one knew what the web could do. That's the reason why. No, everyone's like, I don't know, what can we do?
We were trying to equate it to something in the physical,
like a B&B.
world. Yeah, I guess like a business, maybe B&B, who knows? I don't know. We don't really know what we were thinking back then, and people
No.
will look back in a couple of years and say the same thing about probably what we're doing now. Like right this second now, like Twitch, really? People did that? My kids will be like that in a week, trust me.
Yeah, I mean, everything's gonna be like an AR by there. There's they'll be like, "You did what on a screen?"
The machine will sign your guest book. Thank you very much.
Another fatal flaw of the distribution of this the invite to this is apparently they only hit experts. So we're only surveying CSS experts in this.
Oh, I love that.
You know, it's that time of year I have to do a self-evaluation, so I might as well chime in on that as well and go
Sure.
ahead and check the expert box.
I love
Why
the
not?
descriptor they have underneath. It's able to style an entire front end from scratch following a consistent methodology. I'm like, yeah, right. I'm like, who has time for that? You know, like foo.css. All right, here we go. And then it's like head, body. You know, it's like, you're not doing that. You're starting with a framework. Give me a break.
Oh
So-
my gosh, that's funny. I would have thought like expert would have been like can like
Knows frameworks, you know,
build,
uses.
no, I would
yeah.
have thought it was like the next level, like can build the matrix in it because like
Oh, okay.
that like able to style an entire front end. I'm like, that's doing CSS. Like that's
I would have thought
They
that
would
they would have
do
been like, yeah, I craft transitions and I know how Flexbox works, and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Maybe
as
I
opposed
think
to I can.
maybe
I don't
that's why the answers are so skewed to expert.
Yeah.
Because the descriptions are a little, I don't know.
It's a little weak.
Mm-hmm.
If everybody's an expert, then you know, it's kind of like when I worked in manufacturing, I used to say this: if everything is important, then nothing has priority. So there has to be levels to things.
You're such a dad, Ed.
I know.
God, that's such a
It's almost
dad
like I have
thing to
4
say.
children or something. It's weird.
I love it.
JavaScript proficiency. This wasn't as skewed, I don't think. It's pretty close, but it's not as skewed. A lot of experts in here. Again, it's fairly distributed other than that little bit there, but you'd
You keep
expect
cracking me
people
up.
to work with both.
You got to read TJ and screenshots.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
Yeah.
cracking me up.
I can vertically center divs. Perfect. That
can
is
vertically
actually a very good
That's a
level
pro
of
move
expertise.
there.
Yes, that's Neo Matrix style CSS ability.
by inline styles. Yes. Inline styles. There was a whole side rant there. Exactly. And then Chris is picking up on what I said or agreeing with me here. If everyone's an expert, then nobody is. We're all on the same level. We're all normal. Back-end proficiency. This one
That's
surprised me as well. So you hear a lot of people kind of echo this sentiment that front-end developers don't know back-end and there's no such thing as full-stack devs and this sort of thing. But it looks like
Rubbish.
a good chunk of folks that took the survey at least have some experience with back-end technology. It does, though, look like the expert has leveled off here. Like people are a little more realistic, I think.
Can you read the
this question.
description? Able to,
Sure.
what did I say? Handle. Yeah, thanks. I'm
Complex multi-server and or microservices architectures.
blank. Okay. Yeah, definitely not me.
Um,
Okay.
I mean, is microservices like a back-end like requirement these days?
Nah.
Is it-
Nah.
I don't know if that definitely makes you an expert. You could be an expert on microservices and an expert on all of these other things, but not be an expert on both. That makes
So I
sense.
think we can all agree that if you're cutting CSS, you're doing more than just CSS. And I think we can all agree that if you're cutting more than CSS and you're doing markup and JavaScript and all that, at some point you're going to be talking to some backend because you have to, basically. And so I think that's why I find these sort of questions kind of meaningless. But there you go.
Now, Alyssa, I'm really interested in hearing what you have to say about this one. This one is a graph of where, quote, the outer circles correspond to the total number of users who know about a feature. So the bigger the circle, the more users know about that subject. The inner one represents how many people have actually touched it and used it. This scares me. Media queries is the tiniest circle.
Well, it's not the easiest thing to wrap your head around sometimes, but
It is the tiniest circle.
Okay, well, first
Yeah.
of all, if you didn't take the quiz, it doesn't just say, have you ever used a media query? Because like my toddlers used a media query, right? Like it goes into like detailed advanced features that I was like, that's a thing? Like what?
Yeah.
Like, so I'm thinking that these circles are related not just to the generic, have you used a media query? But I'm thinking it's related to the depth of your media query knowledge. Like, because each one of these, I swear, every single one of these categories, no matter how mundane, it got to a point in the survey where I was like, oh, that's interesting, or oh, I didn't know that existed. So I think maybe I'm hoping that it's taking into account all of it.
So it's not asking if you know media queries screen size, but these very specific new media queries.
So hang on. I think I understand what's happening here. So I misunderstood this initially. The dotted circle is the topic. Its size does not reflect the overall number. Rather, it's the circles inside there. So you can see inside media queries, the solid green versus the sort of translucent green. That's what is the difference. So if you've used it, it's solid. If it's that's what it is. Sorry.
Yeah.
That I was misunderstanding that initially. Sorry.
The overall size of the bubble, though, refers to the total number of users who knew about features.
Correct. Yes.
But
because I was about to call BS. I was about to call BS on this. Like, I was like, why is media queries the dotted circle smaller than animations and transitions? Because animations and transitions is hard enough, and I'm like, media queries isn't that bad. But like Alyssa said, there's a lot of subtlety and nuance to media queries, especially when you take a look at some of the aspects you can do around viewports. But that's interesting. That what you want is tight overlap. You want to see those circles as solid as possible, but the fact that they're small means that people don't really understand them or use them.
Yeah, but the features they're asking about specifically are not the at least in the media query realm, is not the average like use case for them.
Yeah.
So these were like edge case selectors they were talking about. So that's why it's so small. And I didn't even pick up that on the first time I read through this.
Yeah.
Alyssa fixed
Look at Flexbox. It's like completely full.
I know. So, I'm pleasantly like surprised with that one, but then Grid is like a little bit, which makes sense. Grid is, newer and more complex. Would you guys agree that Grid is harder than Flexbox?
Yes.
Depends on the day. Honestly, sometimes I find Flexbox really difficult, and
I can't do Grid without looking at some docs. Like TJ says about media queries. Like every time I touch it, I gotta go look up docs on it.
We should we should give away. Where is it, Zach? I need you to hand me a poster. I have from the marketing team. Do you guys know CSStricks.com? I use every day of my life. Like you're saying, a reference for Flexbox and Grid, and they came out with posters. So we actually have some to give away.
Oh, nice.
Like a poster of those docs, which I know it's like super cheesy, but I'll go get one and show it. But we need to give a couple away. So you guys pick the winners somehow throughout the course of the stream, and we'll make sure we get them mailed out.
See, this is why I invite folks like Alyssa. They bring prizes. Who brings prizes?
Meanwhile, I have nothing to give away, so too bad.
we have stories about koalas.
I know.
So I think that makes up for it.
Forest fire pictures? That could be.
Yeah. That's right.
Let's see. We've got. I like some of the stuff in other features here too. A lot of people know about calc. That was one that I learned relatively recently. I wouldn't say like last week or anything, but it's one of the newer features to me that you can actually calculate widths and things. Variables, I love. We use those a lot in SAS, but I like the new CSS variables as well.
Is that Houdini? Is that what that says?
Yeah,
it's the lower parts of CSS. Basically, it's part of the engine and stuff. You're never going to really touch it.
It's like rolling your own CSS engine. So it gives you the power to roll your own CSS capabilities with JavaScript.
Is Houdini a framework?
We can look at it in a few minutes. There is a link we can pop out to when we get to that section. It's not a framework. It's actually part of a spec. So
Cool.
I don't know how it got the name Houdini, but hey, it's got some interesting things that it can do, and the name is going to draw you in. That's for sure. Out of all the CSS features mentioned in the survey, how many did the respondents know about? So this is your typical bell curve. It looks like. So looks like the median. We know about most of the features, judging by the experience level and stuff that was here. This is totally expected as well. So there's new things that people didn't know about.
I think it's funny because you had like mostly experts, but the bell curve's still in the middle. So that's cute.
Which might prove my point that everybody that thinks they're an expert is an expert.
Yep, ego. We're dealing with ego.
Self included.
I don't think I've ever checked the expert box, like ever. Like why would you? Like there's so much more to learn. And freaking the spec keeps changing. Like
I'll pretend I am because I test well, but putting that in practice, just watch my stream. It's not living up to the expectation.
Yeah, you came here for expert opinion. Jeez, that's your first mistake.
So CSS grid, we saw this in the bubbles, but you can see also an increase 2019 versus 2020. People are learned about grid. More people know about it than previously.
Yeah.
This one is something that I have not used. Subgrid.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that is a grid within a grid and some selectors that help you manage that. Obviously, the way I'm talking about it, I have no clue what it actually does, which also lines up with the people that took the survey.
Well, the other thing we have to remember is that a lot of people are going to be going to Can I Use a lot of the time when they're looking at these. And so some of these features may not be supported, which is why people kind of ignore them.
I was wondering about that because the last time I checked, is subgrid fully supported?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay, because I was reading about it and I was like, wow, that last time I looked at it, because it's part of the grid layout. And I was like, wait, this isn't supported anyway.
What would be interesting is if they took this data and correlated it with the data from Can I Use and see if there's a correlation between, okay, well, no one knows about this because it's not supported.
Mm-hmm. And there's also, I wish these two were closer together. Grid, if you look at the gap in grid 2019 to 2020, we're gaining some experience here. It still isn't to the levels of Flexbox, but it's still not to the 2019 levels of Flexbox either.
Yeah, the other thing about that is that some of these features are definitely better supported than others, and that would correlate with the adoption rates and the knowledge rates, I would think.
Looks like subgrid is supported by a couple versions of Firefox, and that's it.
There you go. So
there,
my ignorant opinion has been proven correct.
This may fall into that same category, multi-column layout. This is a module of CSS that adds support for multi-column layouts. That may be another one that's not supported out of the box because it's in a CSS module. So...
And some of these, you have to remember, like the W3C will publish a lot of these, and the working groups will change direction. And some of these things will get implemented, and then they'll just throw it away, and they'll be like, "All right, this isn't important." So that's part of the reason why I think some people will, kind of not worry about some of these things. I mean, like you have to look at frameworks like Bootstrap and stuff and see what they utilize, because that's what people are going to gravitate to initially to learn this stuff. So,
wow, this is really weird. I just looked up multi-column layout, and it's like kind of like a Christmas tree. This is like red and green all over, but like I've never seen so many partial supports. It's like every version. What is partial support? You support it, you don't. What is that even like?
It's sort of like the way that I've seen it work is like you can express something in pixels, but not in percentage. Like that's partial to me.
Okay.
And then so you have to do all these
some of the less
calculations.
Critical properties don't apply in some browsers. So you may be able to, I don't know, for example, if you look at something like Flexbox, partial support for Flexbox might be you support the horizontal specs for it, but not the vertical. It's only partially supported.
Salt
Which
added
nobody
that it could
does
also
that, but
be
it's just an
behind
example.
Salt added that it could also be behind a feature flag for that specific version.
You got it.
I think I'm going to skip past writing modes. This is about international ways to author CSS, it looks like. And we saw at the top of the survey that it was mostly English and European people that answered this survey. So I think that's a little bit skewed. Let's see here. Container queries.
Yeah, this is awesome.
This is something that I think it says right here in one of the comments, I'm thrilled that Chrome team is working on support for it natively. So this is something that is not currently.
No, but it's awesome. It's an awesome feature, basically.
Right.
So it's like media queries, but for your containers.
Yep.
Which is going to eliminate a whole bunch of sort of these dynamic CSS. It gets rid of a lot of JavaScript that you have to write.
Instead of doing it based on size, you're doing it based on device?
It's based on the container. So if you're in a div, for example, and you want something to stretch according to that container, then the block elements, you can write queries to those block elements, basically. Okay. So you can have, it's sort of like a meta. It's like, so you've got media queries, which can expand to the entire, which apply to the viewport. And the typical one that people think about when they think about media queries is min width. Container queries, you can define now these queries for your containers. So if you have, say, a 3-column layout, and in each column you want to have these containers that adjust based on their dimensions, for example, those are container queries that you can write.
So currently we have media queries that are scoped to the window width of the browser. Container queries are scoped to the parent element. That helps. Yeah. So
you just reference the element ID or name selector, basically, and then scope it to that.
So you say if my parent is 200 pixels wide, then I'm going to go into a vertical layout or hide some elements or that sort of thing.
Yeah, I would imagine that UI companies like Telerik, for example, /Progress would use these very effectively.
Extremely helpful to have that. Let's see, CSS position sticky. This is to set an element height or set an element that is positioned in the document top, left, right, bottom. So this is like a pinning type of a feature. So you see this with footers a lot. You like stick a footer at the bottom of a page and make it stick.
Z-index 9,999.
So when you're scrolling, maybe your footer is always there, maybe your header is always there, that type of thing. I think it may be doing something similar to what's happening in the left-hand bar here. The header and the footer are stationary, and when you scroll, these items are sticky. It lets you accomplish that type of an effect.
Forget CSS, use iframes. That's what I say.
Iframes. This is probably a table. This whole thing is a table.
That's right. It's old school.
HTML table.
Oh my god, I want you to open the console so bad right now.
Right click, inspect. Get to see all your dirty little secrets.
Aspect ratio sets the property for preferred aspect ratio of a box. It's calculated for auto sizes and other layout
This is the thing about CSS that's kind of sometimes frustrating. You look at these things, you're like, oh god, why would I use this? And then you see an application of it, and then you're like, oh. I think that's why certain features of CSS are used more than others. I think some of these are hard to understand.
Maybe like a card component would be handy to have a aspect ratio on it. Maybe you've got images inside of it.
Yeah. Cards are very, very sort of common UX pattern you see.
You'd like that aspect ratio of a card to stay more length than width, possibly. That would be nice. So that, I believe that's what aspect ratio does. And again, when I say I believe that's what it does, because obviously I fall in the know about it or never heard of it group. Definitely haven't used it, but it's nice to know it's there.
Jay's yelling frame sets at us.
Oh, just because it's old school.
Frame sets. CSS content visibility?
Yeah. Like it's like I'm assuming they're talking about where you can set visibility as well as like whenever you're trying to hide something and it's like making it not clickable versus just not visible. Yes? Is that we're talking about here?
It relates also to the performance of a page. So sometimes these can be triggers that will fire based on whether or not your content is viewable within the viewport. I honestly have not used this feature yet, but I know that people talk about these sliding window patterns where you can load content on the fly and apply styles. It has to do with repaints of your browser. I don't know if CSS applies to this, but it certainly applies when you're dealing with JavaScript, that's for sure. But you're trying to minimize those basically as much as possible. But in terms of performance, you don't want to load content or render or style content in some cases because of that.
It appears like it might be a property of the aspect ratio because they're bucketed together here as well. So that's something worth pointing out. So let's move along to shapes and graphics. This is controlling the shape and display of elements. So shapes describes a geometric shape in CSS. For level 1 specification, CSS shapes can be applied to floating elements. I've never used shapes myself.
Probably because they're abstracted away most times. So you'll see these sometimes utilized, some of these features utilized by frameworks that you just don't care about.
Object fit. The object fit CSS property sets the content of a replaced element, such as an image or video, should be resized to fit its container. So I guess if you're loading a video on the fly, you may want that to resize to fit that aspect ratio or something like that. Not sure. Haven't used that one either, but it looks like a lot of people have. So maybe folks are building sites that use a lot of images and videos. Maybe you're building an LMS. I don't know.
Put it in a block element. Set the width to 100%. Done. Check in. Close the issue.
Sorry. Star with 100%.
Yep.
There we go.
Don't care.
Important.
Don't know. Don't care.
Don't forget to put important at the end.
No, object width is awesome. A lot of these features are a little, sometimes you'll use them, sometimes you won't. Sometimes they're actually abstracted by some of the things you'll pull in. Like, for example, like you'll do an object embed, not necessarily like a direct embed, but you'll do like a Twitter embed, for example. A lot of that is abstracted out, so you don't even see it, but it does get applied.
Clip path is really cool. I've never needed to use it. I know what it is. I know about it. Never had the reason to use it. I think this is more for sites that are like advertising and stuff like that. Not so much like
pretty sites
stuff. Pretty sites, yes. But you can control like the clipping of CSS elements to a vector and do like cropping of things. So that one's pretty interesting.
You'll see this. I don't know if the, those paywall sites that, sometimes you'll see it where you'll get like on Medium, you'll get half of it and then it fades into a translucent background. I don't know if they'll apply that, but they may. You can sometimes see the full content in the view source, but
yeah, you can. Yeah, I like to go in Chrome developer.
I think that's more of a JavaScript thing than anything.
Toggle off some of the CSS selectors, but most of them have gotten wise to that and put it like lazy load it and that type of thing. This is similar, masking and clip path. You can use the masking to again draw like a circle path and clip content to it. That's again helpful for more stylish sites, less for line of business stuff.
I've seen a lot of really cool things done with images and like masking, but a lot of it is so extra that I'm like, that's cool.
Another thing this might be helpful for is if you're rolling your own like charts, graphs, that type of thing, where you need to do a lot of drawing of elements on the screen. Blend mode is an interesting one. This one is really cool because you can do Photoshoppy like things with blend mode and filtering effects now. So for example, you have a modal pop-up in the middle of your screen. You can blur the background with just one CSS property now. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny when you check out the demos, they're all like very primitive, and you kind of struggle sometimes to see the benefits of that. It can help, but yeah, I haven't had the need to do this in particular feature. So
I think
Chris is like,
blend mode is, like Chris said, supported the same as I think object fit is what he was referring to, but everywhere but IE is what it looks like.
yeah, IE. Who cares about IE?
It's so hard though. You create something that's like super fancy, super cool, but you can't ship it to IE. And then what do? You just like don't ship that thing to that. I hate that. I hate that dilemma because then you also don't want to hold back your entire site like from using something really cool. I don't know where most of the time it ends up getting thrown out, I feel like, if it's not supported across the board.
So for web development, I think CSS does own Photoshop, but for image creation in general, I would say Photoshop still has the upper hand. But putting like static images where you can use CSS and stuff now is getting to be CSS getting to be a kind of a dominator in where it should be, drawing stuff on our websites. These
are really
filtering
cool.
effects are really awesome.
At the end of each like bucket, it's like recommended resources. I think that's really neat.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
Yeah, there's books and things linked here at the end of each of these, so you can get caught up on if you're in this 49% range that never heard of it, not sure what it is. This link is for you.
filters I have used in the past. It's kind of interesting what you can do from an experimental perspective, but blurs and contrasts, etc. I've used this before.
Yeah, you can do. They're basically, if you've ever used Photoshop, there's like this set of layer filters that are on the lower right hand side usually in the UI. You can click on like how the blend modes interact between those layers in Photoshop. You can do that in CSS now with those filters that we just talked about. These are some interesting ones I've seen JavaScript handled, but I haven't actually seen this in CSS before, and I think that lines up with most folks that took the survey too. So scroll snap and scroll behavior, those two have to deal with, you see these fancy sites where you're scrolling and it like locks into a section. It looks like that is being used enough to where it's getting to be included in the spec now. I think one of the terms for this was scroll jacking is what they used to call it.
That can happen.
Yeah.
You'll see this in a table of contents sidebar sometimes. If it wants to kind of maintain a position. It relies on anchoring in some cases.
Yeah, Scroll Spy is, I think, a JavaScript plugin, a jQuery plugin that was out there. I don't remember if it was part of Bootstrap or one of those frameworks, but Scroll Spy was one of them. So it looks like it's got native support in the spec now. So this is pretty interesting.
Oh, Salt was listing out, I think, what you were trying to say with the filters. Dodge, burn, multiply, screen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those are the ones. Those filter effects can be used in CSS now. So they're pretty much the same. If the terminology isn't exactly the same, there's something that equates to those things. Touch action and pointer events. This has to do with touch actions is about using your touch screen and making sure the CSS properties align with those type of behaviors. Pointer events. I've used this one a few times. You've
used Kendo UI. You've used this.
Yeah, it changes how the pointer looks like when you're hovering over certain targets and things like that. It's kind of a UX behavior. So,
yeah, both of these are characteristics that are built into Kendo UI, especially during the early days of development when we were looking at devices. So how those things, because when you're interacting with UI, you want to make sure those things are propagated correctly. And back in the day, some of these things weren't implemented very well, not in Kendo UI, but in the viewports found on, say, mobile Safari or mobile Chrome. So those things turn out to be pretty important, especially when you're interacting with UI elements.
Somebody here that has used a lot of font face, I'm sure, is Alyssa. I've worked with you before. And Alyssa will go.
I don't know what you're
full,
referring to.
Crazy fonts and colors and just make stuff look awesome.
I do love, but there's a lot of, this is one of the things that I was talking about where you run into partial support. And I was doing some, like recently, some really fancy stuff with font and using like ligatures that I didn't even know existed that you have access to through CSS, like specifying certain ligatures of a font. And I don't know, I think that's the hardest part whenever you start to get into these more advanced features is being conscious of, well, what happens when that's like, whenever that bit doesn't work. Like
Yeah.
how janked is this gonna look? So, but no, I love messing with fonts and I love getting all pretty with it and defining like, especially I don't know if you've seen like the ligatures that you can specify with CSS, but it's very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
kerning is my jam. I love kerning with fonts.
There's always these developer curveballs you get thrown. And I was working on some kiosks in 2015. I was doing kiosk work, and I was building all the the graphic design stuff for the site on my PC, and then we deployed it to the kiosk, and it looked like total garbage. Turns out the kiosk used some Linux version of like a spin-off, like a fork of Chrome.
Sure.
So they, for performance reasons, I guess they're like, we don't need that font thing. They like threw out a bunch of the spec. So, once it got uploaded to the kiosks, it looked like trash.
That is
So we had to
so
get,
crazy.
yeah.
You had to work with like a non-real browser. How fun is that?
Yeah. So
Fire up
things we use
Photoshop.
on-
That's the solution.
yeah, these were
Great
things
image.
used on the factory floor. And they were kind of up in rafters and things like, hanging above the factory floor.
What
so
did
could
you
look
end up
up and
doing?
see.
You're just like
Uh,
not
so-
Arial.
having
That's
fun?
what he ended up doing. Tahoma. That's what he ended
Believe
up
it or
doing.
not, JavaScript can do anything.
Oh,
There was a what do you call it? I'm going to draw a blank here. What's the name for the JavaScript things that let you do things that this browser doesn't support?
Hacking.
Hack.
Spackle.
Kind of like a shim.
Yeah, polyfill.
Polyfill. There we go. John's got it. Polyfill.
I called it spackle, but I always call it that because it's the cracks in your wall you fill in with
Wish it
yeah.
in. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
I call
So
it just spackle.
There was a polyfill, and it would take the font and I guess like render it to an image or something at runtime, and it made it work. So
That's funny.
it made it slow, but it was on a kiosk. Like this wasn't like something people were like browsing to very quickly. So it'd load up, and then it would sit there for hours on end before it changed. So the performance didn't matter in our use case. So the polyfill worked. It'd take a couple seconds to get that page to render, but
That
at least
is-
it was
That
pretty.
is such a cool thing that you got to work on. It's so edge. Like, yeah, we didn't load time. What's that? That's not a worry. Like,
To be effective at web development on hard to deploy devices, just kill that part of your soul that isn't dead yet.
right.
Well, it was like shortly after that too. Like every big TV ended up getting like a Chrome, like Chromecast or Netflix or Hulu, whatever you call it, smart TVs.
Mhm.
So we probably could have redeployed all that, but these were like essentially Roku devices that were slapping on all these TVs and turning TVs into kiosks
Cool.
before those things were cool. So
Grrr.
let's see, line breaking properties.
Meh. Never
Yeah.
used it, but
Punctuation symbols. So it's for Chinese, Japanese, or Korean characters. Yeah, that's what it's saying.
That's what it says. I have no clue, but I think maybe people mistook this for something else, or
word wrap maybe. Maybe they
word
thought of it
wrapping,
that way.
sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
they answered that they've used it, although the description doesn't seem like that matches what we've seen with the survey so far. So who knows? Font variant is one that I have no clue. Lets you
I think
set
this
all
is
the
like,
variants for a
different-
font.
Yeah, like Arial bold and heavy and things like that.
Those are where you can find the special ligatures too.
Oh, see,
Like
there-
you'll be like, it's super, like, at least the way I've used it is like you've got this header and you're like, okay, the ER like on the end of this title, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take the end of that ER, give it its own class, and then we're gonna give it a font variant so that the ER has a different ligature. So like I don't know. I haven't found a way to make it pretty, but I like using it. But I don't want anybody to look at the CSS.
You should teach Ed how to use it because his arrows suck.
You try drawing with a mouse in zoom mode.
Hey, it's your show.
Oh, what's
It's
next?
our show. We all are one big happy family here.
Yeah.
Initial letter.
Initial letter. I always think of those old medieval books I used to read. You know,
they've got the first letter, and it's like this big.
Yeah, it's a snake wrapped around the R or something like that. So
yeah. So that's what initial letter does. I've used that before, just to be fancy. I think there was a game thing, a gamification of web development stuff, and I used that before too. They're like, can you capitalize the first letter? You can use some CSS to do that.
Also, isn't it very newspapery? Or I honestly haven't read a newspaper in years.
It's like classic print design type of stuff. Font very numeric. Controls alternate glyphs and numbers and fractions.
Some of these I know, but I just can't be bothered to use them sometimes.
Oh,
it's
so
like meh.
fun. It's so fun. I love
All right.
fonts. Well, okay. Once you are like, okay, wait, you think to yourself, these fonts that I already own them, have different ligatures that I didn't know about. And then you go and peek behind the covers at your font and you're like, oh, it's beautiful. Let's use it everywhere. At least that's my experience with it.
Okay.
He doesn't feel that way.
It's fine. I like pretty things, but yeah.
Jason Pimentel. Sounds familiar. Do we know him?
More vendor prefixes. That's all I see. Just vendor prefixes everywhere. I hate them. Sorry, I'm just gonna get really disgruntled in this whole analysis of the state of CSS.
It is. It's a lot of very like advanced things. Like at least I felt that way. I felt very overwhelmed with the survey. I was like, this is a lot. But I wonder what the survey would look like if they didn't include like things that were not equally supported. Like if it didn't have at least 50% support across browsers. Like I feel like it'd be maybe a more accurate survey of the CSS we know today. But
sure.
Hey, Legendary, by the way. Hi. They said hi. Ed, you're talking and I don't hear you. I see your mouth moving.
Yep.
Does he hear us? Ed,
yeah, it looks like
I don't hear you.
Yeah.
But maybe we're coming through your Oculus again. So hello, Ed's Oculus.
Nice.
Sometimes StreamYard likes to take over that audio input for him. And
maybe Ed needs to learn how to work with the audio API of his browser. Who knows what's going on?
I'll try changing mics. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yeah, you're good.
That was weird. Okay, so something gave up on me here. I was saying we're starting to run short on time.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
If you all have a hard out, we've got about 5 minutes left here. Let's jump through animation and transforms. Most
Love
people
them.
knew. So
they're great. Target the GPU. Awesome to do fun stuff on your browser.
I did want to talk about media queries really quick. This is why that circle was so small on that first overview.
I mean, like, prefer reduced motion? I didn't even know that was a thing. How cool is that? That's awesome.
Yes. So this is for people that have problems with things on the page moving. So there's people with disorders that maybe something, animations, that sort of thing, triggers something where they get dizzy, they have vertigo, those type of things. So this is a CSS media query that can, the people can set this flag on their OS, and then the browser can pick it up and go, oh, this person doesn't want to see animations. Maybe it bothers them. It's so
cool, right? Because shouldn't you, in theory, just be able to wrap all of your like big animations in only if they prefer reduced motion? Like
absolutely. So you can put that media query around all the animation stuff, turn it off, or set numbers, set times to 0 and 0 all those things out.
Non-essential motion. Can you please tell me what essential motion is? Couldn't we remove all motion? Like what?
Here is one that I'm a big fan of. Prefers color scheme. So this one detects your OS preferred color scheme. So if you use a dark theme on your operating system, you can pick that up in your website and use that to change your site theme. I use that one a lot. That one's really cool. Color gamut. This is one I hadn't heard of. Can be used to test the approximate range of colors that are supported by the user agent and the output of the device. So I don't know the use case for that one. It may be an accessibility thing. I'm not quite sure. It has something to do with detecting the color range of the user's device. That's an odd one for me.
I mean, I used to work at a place where we would, like, I built custom color pickers, and we were printing on fabric and looking at like the different like colors that each device could see and how different that was from print was like a nightmare. So I could see it for that kind of thing where you could detect, hey, you're on a device that has like 2 colors. Maybe you should not be color picking on this device. But I don't know for general public what that would be used for.
I'm going to skip this one. Well, maybe we shouldn't. There's Houdini. CSS variables, super important. It's about 75% of people have a grip on that one, which is awesome. That means I can use even more of those and people can follow what I'm doing. I've never used supports.
It's kind of like yep, nope, but for CSS.
Yep.
So yep, nope allows you to inspect basically in JavaScript if features are supported, and supports is sort of similar. So feature querying is done all the time in JavaScript.
Will change hints that the element is expected to change. This is another accessibility feature. So this one is telling your screen readers that something's intentionally going to be updated. So maybe like you have a SPA framework and everything that is on the page gets rendered client side. So you might put will change around maybe a box on that screen, a div that's after some maybe some data loads or something like that, like the grid populates with data. You want to wrap that in a will change so your screen reader is waiting for that change so it'll read it out loud. So that's an important one. Calc, everybody knows, another good one. CSS Houdini. So let me click through on this one. This I thought was really interesting, and Alyssa was wondering what this was about. So it looks like you can add your own JavaScript module to the DOM, and then you can use that inside of your CSS to do very custom things. So you can extend the CSS feature set through JavaScript. So in this example, they use a paint module, and then they tell the background image that it's going to use that paint module inside of CSS. So you're extending CSS with Houdini. It's pretty cool. You can add your own API surfaces, whatnot. So I thought that was pretty fascinating. I've never used that myself. It seems like a pretty advanced feature that I don't really have a need for, but it's cool to know it's there. Let's jump ahead since we're getting close on time, and then if either of you have to go, we can try to reconvene another time and cover more of this.
I'm okay.
Do you have a hard out, Alyssa? I know, John, you probably do.
I'm okay.
I think I can stay.
You can stay a bit? Okay, let's jump through a couple more of these real quick because I think it was under technologies. This one, yeah. This was something I thought was really interesting. I don't want to skip. If we can cover this one, I think we can wrap things up. Technologies, this is some important stuff for me anyway, because I love SAS, and I think Alyssa loves SAS too. So we can kind of have a celebratory
You just like
moment.
quadrants. You're like the magic quadrant, dude.
Yeah, this is my Gartner style magic quadrant.
Seriously, charts like this like overwhelm me. I never know how to I don't know what I'm looking at. Legit. It's just
You want top right.
Okay, cool.
Excuse me. You want top right. If you're a technology, you want to be top right.
okay.
So under assess, it has low usage, high satisfaction, technology to keep an eye on. This is like the up and coming possibly thing. Adopt means it's got high usage, high satisfaction, safe to adopt. Everybody's using it and loves it. Avoid, I think that one's kind of obvious. Analyze is to everybody's using it, but the satisfaction's low, so it might be falling. So this is your falling star type of a situation.
Bootstrap, gotta love her.
Bootstrap
just like
is
barely drowning.
Straddling
Yeah,
that edge,
barely drowning me. Would you die already? I mean, what?
So I think, yeah, it's John put that very well. It's like right here below the line,
Yep.
gasping
You can see
for
the
air,
surface.
and
Yep.
it's like, come on, I'm just barely underwater here. Like, come on, please, somebody save me. It's bobbing up and down, catching its breath every once in a while. So there's Bootstrap, but look at Sass.
Oh wow! So look at what Salt said. Salt said move Tailwind, Bootstrap, and less into Avoid. I've heard like lots of new things about Tailwind like recently, and I thought like, where is it? Can you see it on the list anywhere? I don't.
Tailwind is right.
I didn't see it listed.
Oh,
Okay, there you go.
So that is in the assess.
Forget what assess means.
So that means not a lot of people are using it, but the people that are using it are really happy with it. So keep an eye on it because it's headed towards the adopt.
And then he's telling you to stop using Tailwind immediately.
So this is trying to move this way.
Okay.
So if it does move that way, that's a good thing. If it moves this way or this way, that's not a good thing. So you want to be at least here or here. This is the happy place, though.
Okay, but like seriously, what is OOCSS? Just like real quick.
Object-oriented CSS. What that entails, I have no idea, but that's what the acronym stands for.
God, I'm looking this up right after the show.
So there's a ton of things in here. Materialize is in there. So this is pretty interesting, though. A lot of people are using Bootstrap. The satisfaction level's dropping. It looks like less is the same. Sass, I love Sass. I'm happy it's there. That means people are going to continue using it, which means I can continue using it.
Post CSS or paste?
Post.
What is
Post CSS is similar to Sass, but it's compiled with a JavaScript compiler, where Sass is using usually it was initially written in a Ruby compiler, and was later converted or ported to C++. So generally you have to install some third-party thing, where Post CSS, I think it just has a JavaScript module that you use to plug into your usual pipelines and make it happen. So it's a little bit more portable from what I understand. This is what Tailwind uses.
Oh.
So Tailwind.
Interesting.
Tailwind uses Post CSS, and then oops, I cut Bootstrap off. Bootstrap uses Sass.
Right.
So these guys are kind of joined a little bit together here. There's other frameworks that use Sass as well. Foundation, I'm kind of sad to see it down here. They use Sass as well. They're saying Avoid. It's always been like the redheaded stepchild to Bootstrap. Sorry, gingers. I used that offensive terminology.
That's my saying. Stop stealing it.
But I loved Foundation. It was a very bare bones version of Bootstrap.
I didn't know it was still kicking.
Yeah, apparently it's not kicking very well because it wasn't able to swim up to the adopt area. But it looks like people are avoiding that one.
Okay, so
Some of these things you can't kill either. They're like cockroaches. They survive the nuclear winter of when a browser gets updated. So
if we jump over to
they can't kill them. You just can't. Like that's why Bootstrap's still around. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's funny. Chris,
we jump over to
a bunch of information about OOCSS,
Oh, yeah.
by the way. So I just wanted to point that out if you haven't seen in the chat. Lots of good stuff.
Yeah, Alyssa, or sorry, Chris, do you have one of the posters Alyssa was talking about?
Yes, we should give him one.
If he doesn't have one,
hey, give me your address.
then we will get him one. Post CSS, this is all under preprocessor and post processor. So this is extending CSS. So post CSS is in the top rankings here with Sass right beneath it. But you can see over the years here, post CSS picking up momentum, Sass losing a little bit of momentum, just by 2 percentage points. So that's almost probably in the margin of error with statistics here, but they're relatively the same. Stylus, it looks like it's losing some speed. Less is falling off the wagon. I thought Less was dead ages ago, to be honest.
Ed, do me a favor. Take your browser window and shrink it widthwise just for a second.
Shrink
the slope of these, just thanks. The width of these lines are so great that you can't even see the slope. Yeah, you can't even make out the slope.
Oh.
You see how it goes from 46 down to 39? The slope is imperceivable.
I didn't even realize they had a slope.
I thought they did.
They do, but they're so narrow margins you can't see them.
Yeah, I don't think they're drawn correctly. 46 down to 39 would be a steeper slope, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
There is some sort of slope there, but like you said,
That's a bug. I think that should be rendered better.
It's a feature. But it gives you an idea which ones are popular. Post CSS and Sass look like they're leading the herd. I would suggest checking out either of those if you don't use them already. This is like a satisfactory survey. So Sass, people that are using it would use it again. And some of it's bleeding.
It's not surprising. Sass is very nice. It's you got to refresh. They've drawn things differently.
So
yeah.
Green is good and pink is bad.
Yeah, green is good, pink is bad. There we go. So people that are using Sass or not using it again, you could see it's kind of shrinking a little bit. Where this one's growing, the green is growing on post CSS. So you're getting more people that would use it again. Stylus, people aren't interested. The interest is kind of waning a little bit. But this is nice to see. Both of these, I haven't used, both of these. I haven't used post CSS, but it looked very similar to Sass. Again, I think it's more compiler focused on JavaScript. So I'd say either of those are probably a good choice. And then this is more the same. Like this is the positive negative split. So it's showing kind of how happy people are with these technologies. So the bigger the green bar, the happier they are. And again, more and more of the same. This is like over analyzing the few processors that we have.
Look, in summary, just use Sass. That's what they're saying.
Yeah. Other tools in this category, I'm not sure how Tailwind fell into that because, again, it's built on one of these. It'd be like Bootstrap being in here. So that one's kind of strange.
Maybe they didn't know where to put it.
Yeah.
They were like, this fits here.
This is another important one here, methodologies. So these are kind of like best practices that we use. It looks like BEM.
It stands for Block Element Modifier. It's a way of naming basically your elements in CSS or in your markup and then referring to them. So block, the container, element, the individual item itself, and then modifier, meaning what's going to be applied.
These are probably some things that I do without thinking. I probably subscribe to one of these type of naming conventions, but I don't realize that I do. But looks like BEM shrunk just a little, or no, actually, yeah, it shrunk slightly. And then Atomic CSS kind of picked up some steam, but not by much. They're very small margins here. Basically, just putting some kind of best practice and standard behind how you write CSS is generally just a good idea. I'd say most of these you could adopt and have success with. You could see in the green sections here too, BEM seems to be pretty satisfactory when people are using it. And then we get to this one. This is one that always is uphill battle with me. personally. I don't care for CSS and JavaScript. I don't think it has a place there.
You don't like peanut butter and chocolate?
No, I think we have CSS, and it's a great language for writing styles and things like that. And I don't think we need to move that over to another language. I don't think it's portable, for one. I think we benefited from this at Progress because we just use Sass and CSS. When Blazor came out, we didn't have to like go rip our style sheets out of JavaScript code and convert it back to CSS so it could be used in WebAssembly and .NET. So
Well, talk to the folks at Facebook because they disagree.
yeah, they can disagree. They make good VR headsets, but I don't know about CSS frameworks. But it's one of those things that's highly debated, and there's some different frameworks to do that.
I'm right there with you, Ed, but it's also really hard because we are in the minority. I really, really think we are. And I feel like, especially with things like, even in the Angular world, where it's like, animations are built into Angular. What does that mean? That means animations are built into JavaScript with like it's just like hard to separate. And I did a talk at one point of like reasons to use JavaScript, like to use CSS in your JavaScript. And there are reasons. There are times when you're like, yeah, you're gonna need to use JavaScript.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like for the most part, I think a lot of developers are just comfortable on the JavaScript side of things, and so it's just easier for them to do it over there. And so then do it over there, and it might not be as performant, and or like you said, scalable for like later use. And so I don't know. I'm with you on that one, but I also see the other side.
So here's an interesting fact too. When you put animations and filter effects in JavaScript, they are not GPU accelerated, but they are in CSS. So
it's part of the reason why you're seeing a lot of these let me show you demo sites where people are doing everything in CSS. Mm-hmm. And just people are trying to try things out to see if they can not even get a blip on the radar in terms of the CPU.
So styled components, JSS, styled JSX, these are all frameworks. This is another problem with this issue here, this idea. From my perspective, is it's fragmented. So not only are
they're also comparing apples and shovels. Like there are some differences here. So
it's not only are you saying we're going to go ahead and abandon CSS and put our code elsewhere, then you get to pick the one of 19 different styles of doing this, and you fragment your developers even more. Not a fan, but I'm not the decider of all things web development, so pick your poison.
Modules should be the one that I think stands out for me on this one. You have to namespace stuff at some point and have some kind of containerization protocol. So,
did I miss it? I'm looking for. There should be a CSS module type of a thing here.
I think it was mentioned in the CSS and JavaScript. Yeah, so it's the second one. It's gone up in terms of its adoption rate.
Styled components, is it? There's one that is about CSS isolation, and that is also something I'm not a great big fan of. I know I saw it in here. Maybe it was under other tools, utilities.
If you're not using a linter, you're crazy. I'm sorry, but if you're doing CSS and you're not using a linter, good luck.
Yeah. So the other one is CSS isolation technologies, and it's in here somewhere, but this thing is massive.
Are you talking about like where it disables like cascading, and so it's like per component type thing?
Yes.
View encapsulation in Angular. Yeah.
Not a fan. Not a fan.
Nobody is. No, I'm kidding. There's lots of people who freaking love it. And
some people
why they
love it?
Because they can do whatever the crap they want and it doesn't go anywhere. It's disabling to see in CSS, and I'm totally against it. But
it's a total anti-pattern, and I've seen so many headache questions in Blazor now that they've added it there, that it's gotten to be one of the things that I just flat out hate on.
So it's not just Angular.
Find it here.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. I cannot find
Salt
it in
was
here.
telling you where it was, but it was like so many pages ago.
Did I? Yeah.
He was
it's
like,
in here somewhere.
Yellow.
It was definitely in here.
Go back up. Go back up. I think he's talking about
So-
that yellow right there. See how it says
CSS.
module?
Okay,
Is
that
what
may
you're-
be it.
Maybe.
Um,
I don't know if
so-
is that clickable. Will that take you somewhere?
No,
To the
doesn't.
portal of your dream.
Not there, but it may down here.
Oh.
CSS modules.
Okay, so see how that like E and that line overlap? That's so sexy.
Yeah, I think this is possibly it. I really. Ugh.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're saying CSS modules is where they're doing what we just talked about? Is that what you're saying? What are you? Yeah.
That's what Chris is saying. That's kind of a generic version of it. I think each framework. Maybe this is what React uses. I'm not sure. I haven't been doing React
Look it up.
as of
So
late.
React, the React approaches the problem a little bit differently because they obviously have their own language, which is JSX, and it's their combination of things.
Style.
And so
JSX is
you
possibly it.
React components is their line of separation basically, whereas CSS modules takes a different approach.
Yeah, Blazor has this out of the box. It's included in the framework itself now, so it does magic to isolate the components, and it attaches a custom attribute, and then people get completely lost as to where stuff's going and how it's happening. So yeah, these
Okay.
just it's CSS. Like just leave it alone. Leave
Yeah,
CSS.
you're right,
Let it
'cause
do its thing.
That's exactly what it is. It says a CSS module is a CSS file in which all class names and animations are scoped locally by default. And then
Yeah.
Salt is saying that you can enable them in React as well. Because TJ was saying it's the Wild West in React, but apparently they have them there too.
Yeah, these things. I can foresee a future where you look at one of these charts. Let's find any one of these charts, and like this "would use it again" thing starts to just fall off a cliff, and people just
Yeah.
buck against like putting that stuff in their projects because we've been down this road with inline styles, and it doesn't end well. It just doesn't end well. So like as an old timer, I'll tell you, we've done it before, and it's terrible. Don't do it again. But you're gonna do it anyway. This is dad mode kicking in, Alyssa. You can
You
probably
have
hear
to
it in my
put
voice.
TJ's comment on the screen. It makes
What?
me so happy.
So TJ, you know better. You've done GeoCities. You know better than this. You don't override the cascade in the cascading CSS. It's what it's there for. It makes my head hurt. I don't know why people want to subject themselves to this stuff, but they do.
Actually, I like CSS modules myself, so it aligns well to my style of coding. So
Yes,
You don't-
I like the componentized stuff conceptually.
You don't count, John.
Okay.
I think this is a pretty good point to wrap things up. There's some other interesting facts in the results here. Environments might be something interesting for folks to look through with browsers. They have a great resource section here that shows you where people get most of their information from. CSS tricks, smashing mag,
Got number 2 spot. Yikes.
list
didn't know.
apart.
Is that popular?
So Stack Overflow isn't listed. Maybe it's listed later.
Is it?
This is blogs and magazines.
Oh.
Okay.
Sites and
There you
courses.
go. Number 1.
Other sites.
Udemy.
Podcasts. Shop Talk Show. I didn't know about the Syntax podcast. I've checked that out. I love Shop Talk Show. That's one of my favorites. Let's see. Other podcasts. People wrote things in. Nobody wrote us in. Come on. Let's see. I haven't read through the opinion section, but I don't want to. A lot of pink. A lot of people. CSS is easy to learn. It's going down in trajectory here, but agree is growing. So it's maybe not the easiest thing to learn, but it's fairly easy to
I
learn.
really do not know how you read these charts. I just see color, like blinding color. I need it in like word form. Just tell me what you're trying to say, chart. Like
Is CSS evolving too slowly?
The summary,
seem to
Alyssa,
be okay
is
with it.
everything is terrible, and you should feel terrible. Basically.
Thank you. I wish the charts could just tell me that, right? Like,
Utility, non-semantic utility classes should be avoided. Everybody's kind of like, meh, it's fine. All the lines are about the same. They're good with that. Let's see, nesting selectors, should they be avoided? Again, the strength of agreement is changing, so they're not as strongly in agreement on this as they were last year. But generally speaking, like about half the people think you shouldn't use nested selectors.
Well, that case is very specific. So the one that they use as an example,
Yeah.
what was their example?
basically
you
class
have-
ID, element type, and then style.
About four nesters, four selectors nested deep.
I like to draw the line at 3.
CSS is a programming language. Should we even debate this, folks?
What?
CSS is a programming language? Strongly disagree, shrinking. Well, that's good. Disagree, growing. Yeah, that's not good. It's a programming language. Come on.
I
Who
was
cares?
taught in school
That's my opinion.
that it is not, and that you cannot call yourself a programmer if all you do is HTML and CSS. Legit.
Well,
I was taught that in college.
you know what?
Okay.
We'll go back to this in 1 second. 1 second. I enjoy writing CSS. A lot of people, I mean, both agree and strong is about 70 to 80%.
Yeah, but if you're filling out this
happy
survey,
there.
you like CSS anyway, I think.
True.
Like,
Yeah,
who's going to be angry filling out this survey, you know?
that's
so-
true.
CSS.
This is a biased survey.
I'm going
I-
to take my time out of my day and angrily reply to this survey that will help people understand CSS better.
Yeah.
So 2.6%, John, fit that that agenda. They came here just to hate it.
I know.
They They didn't bubble in anything else. They came straight to this question.
You know,
and just-
surveys are weird. Surveys are weird to me. I don't know. Some of these questions really aren't that relevant, I think, but whatever.
or self-explanatory too.
Yeah.
Are you
Chris
happy
has
with
a good point. He says that he struggles with that all the time, what we were talking about earlier, and that he's been told, I'm not a developer for 25 years because I don't write JavaScript. And I think that is something that since I started programming that I've struggled with a lot, because I really love the front end side of life. But because I am not like justified in, you're not really a programmer unless you do like JavaScript and some sort of back end, that I've always kind of fought that stigma in my own brain because I was taught that very.
If someone ever says that to you, Alyssa, just tell them to go, you know where. I think people who say things like that are idiots. So,
Yeah. It's maybe not technical on paper. Fits the definition.
no,
of
if
a
you're doing this,
programming
dude, if you're doing anything that is creating in terms of this and you're cutting it in a text file, you're a developer, in my view. Okay. I don't care if you're using whatever. But these people who have these esoteric arguments around things like you're not really a developer, like seriously go away, because you're doing something that a very, very, very small percentage of people can do, and we need more people than ever to do those things. So I think these arguments of who cares? I don't care what you're doing. Do you make things work? Yes. Good. Are you making things look pretty? Good, because I need your help, because I make things look really ugly.
Here, I'll fix it for him. Like, this is...
It is fun.
Is code.
There you go. Problem solved. You're not going to argue that one. CSS is code, so go pound sand.
Oh my god. It got
that's-
so stubby. That's funny.
It doesn't need to be a programming language. It's code. You're writing code. That's all that really matters there. So, and then I think we can jump back to demographics real quick and show this one again as well. If you're writing CSS and this is what your earning potential is, then doesn't matter if it's code or if it's a programming language or if you're just happy making, a good living. So I think we can call it a good summary there. Anybody got any closing statements on the state of CSS? What's your conclusion?
Learn it, live it, love it. But know that you don't have to live in that world if you don't like it. if there's people doing great things with this, God bless you. That's my opinion. You make me look better, and because God knows I don't make things look good. And I love working with designers and people. Seriously, I've done so many websites that sometimes I look at the markup. I'm like, the markup's beautiful and it works, and all I care about is what's on the wire. And then along comes this designer, and I'm like, they should be doubling your pay, dude, because you're making what I'm doing look so amazing. So I think we need more people doing this stuff.
Yeah, so as far as the survey in particular goes, I learned a lot of new selectors that I didn't necessarily know were there, or properties, whatever you want to call them, features. I need to go brush up on a few of them. I think there's some cool stuff in here I haven't seen before. And then I think CSS, SAS are awesome. Keep your JavaScript out of my CSS, please. The
I like
tools-
peanut butter and chocolate. I've kind of gone through two different. I've started at stage 0, anger, and then denial, and then now I'm at stage 5, which is kind of acceptance. I'm like, whatever, I don't care anymore.
That's so fun. Wait, what's after acceptance? Is that it? Is
Oh,
that
that's stage 5. Yeah, anger, denial, bargaining. There's something else, and then acceptance. And I'm like, meh, who cares? That's where I'm at now.
Alyssa,
Ed and I are happily in anger.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, perfect.
Leave it out of there. It doesn't belong there. When you go to port this to something, when the next big thing comes along, whether it's WebAssembly or it's something else, all your code's going to be stuck in whatever that thing was you decided to put in. You're not going to be a happy camper. Anyway.
The one thing I would say to people watching this, to the 3 people watching this, it's basically use what gets the job done. And don't be afraid if, honestly, that magic quadrant we showed, if you're in the bottom left, don't worry. I mean, if you're getting your job done, keep going. I think people oftentimes, because we all work in our own silos and sometimes we don't talk, and then we see that the whole industry is moving in this direction. It's kind of like being at a house party and everyone's gone to the next house and you're kind of sitting there watching, I don't know, Rick and Morty on the television, drinking a beer, and you're wondering, where did everyone go? Don't worry. It's fine. You just, if you're awesome, keep being awesome. And then just know that stuff's going on in the industry. There's a lot of churn in the industry, especially in front end technologies. I mean, the rate of change in technology is fast enough, but in front end, it's doubly so. And so and the way I look at it is I look at it like radioactive decay. You're going to see these frameworks come and go, and you're going to see a lot of them make a lot of noise. And I would say just your primary job is to get your job done, just to get bits on the screen. So that's what you should focus on, and make sure you do it well. And then constantly go through a sharpening process of learning these things. And I think the survey will surface those things out, and just keep going. And then adopt what you can. You don't have to take it whole hog. You can always just be like, I'll use one piece for this and one piece for that. That's why CSS is great for that, because you don't have to adopt the whole Megillah. You can stay at level 1 if you want, or you can go all the way up to level 3. It doesn't really matter. Learn your units like rems and pixels and all that. Know the impacts of those things. So I think those are really important. Those take a while. Learn Flexbox, layout, the standard stuff. I mean, that state of survey really should be like, what do you think are your top 5 things to know about CSS, rather than let's list everything. But these things come and go.
To John's point, the users don't care how the colors got on the screen. Alyssa, any last words?
I hope that you're all encouraged, rather discouraged by this. It can be overwhelming. There's a lot of things that I didn't know on the survey, and I actually made a little list of look into that later. Like, how is that used? What's the best way to use that? And so if nothing else, because it's so overwhelming, just pick one thing that you didn't know and go look at it, right? And I think you'll be better off for it. So, but yeah, I hope you're encouraged. And then also I'm going to be on the same channel, same bat channel on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern with my sister, who's going to the same college that I went to. And we're going to be talking about CSS because she's learning CSS for the first time this month. So come and do her homework with us. We're going to do it live. It'll be fun.
That's so cool.
Wow. Okay. So just a question on that. I don't mean to interject here, but what sort of homework is she doing? Is she is it on paper, or is it's got to be on a laptop?
Yeah, no, it's through their school portal right now. Everything is cool. And so she last week, so we both went to Full Sail University, and it is a condensed bachelor program that I went through and that she's going through the graphic design. I went through web development, web design and development. And so there's a little bit of overlap. And so last week she learned HTML and just built out her first web page. And then this week they're styling it. And so it's just bunch of virtual like learning classes that she takes.
That's awesome.
And then at the end, it's kind of like, here's my project. So
That's awesome.
That is. Yeah. I like the learning opportunities have changed over the years. So I think it's a big problem that's been part of the presidential debates and everything this year is cost of college just going through the roof. So the different universities that are like Full Sail and workshops and YouTube.
Everything's online. College is overrated.
Amazing.
Learn for yourself. Sorry. I went to university. I learned way more out of university. I did a computer science degree, and I was like, I learned way more after university than in university. I mean, don't get me wrong, that you'll learn the foundation stuff, which is good. And if you're lost, it's a great way to start. But honestly, the amount of YouTube videos and resources, I mean, you saw it in the survey. There was like, where do you go to learn CSS? I mean, all those are very approachable. And the people writing for those know, like, people are learning this for the first time. And there's so many good demos and stuff. And it's, you know, but if you like a classroom environment, you know, go for that. But, you know, don't feel like you have to.
And you can do it at home. You can do it safely.
Yes.
Without paying tens of thousands of dollars a year to go catch COVID and be disappointed. So,
oh my gosh, Screechrat. They didn't have the internet when I went to college.
Yeah, same.
Unfortunately,
it was just coming about. So Ed and I fall in that camp. Yeah. Alyssa, we know you were born on, like, you know, when I guess, oh God, what was, YouTube, I guess, was around when you were born and all that. So
I was born the year the internet was born, 89. Yes, I did. Sorry. Love you, Salt.
So make sure you hit that follow button on the Twitch channel or wherever you're viewing from, so you get alerted when the shows come up. Alyssa's got some coming later this week. So do I as well. So we have some Blazor shows and React shows with TJ. If TJ's still in the chat room, he's got a show on Wednesday as well.
Are we going to mention our super secret next month thing?
Yeah, sure. We can talk about that.
Ed is going to teach me Signal R. We're going to do a Signal R week next week. I'm super excited. And he's going to introduce
Not next week.
Oh, next month. Thank you. In January.
Second week of January or third week.
Ed is like, dear God, not next week. What are you doing?
Ed's converting you into a back-end developer now.
I'm really excited. I'm hoping it's not as scary as everyone says it is. But
it's not. It's not. It's just a messaging protocol that utilizes a variety of technologies. That's it. It's easy. You should be fine.
The way you say that, it's like, boom.
No, it's fine. Just look, you and I are speaking English right now. We're talking. We're making grunts out of our voice box here, right? We're doing the same thing with Signal R, except we're doing it with different dialects. We're talking to different things, basically. And Signal R is a front-end technology, but it allows you to talk to back-end things and uses protocols. But it's like CSS, like knowing the intricacies of certain things isn't important. You know, does the element go where it needs to go? Yes. Okay. Well, that's all it cares. So in Signal R, it's like, hello, goodbye. That's it, you know.
So what John's trying to say, Alyssa, is it's simple unless you want to get into the complexities of how it really works.
That is true. Yes.
Then we'll have a good, fun learning experience next month when we do that. We're going to try to have some fun with it, make kind of an interactive game that we can play.
Perfect.
So it should be a good time. And
WebSockets for the win.
I think is really just cool technology in general. And the top level APIs of it are really super easy to learn.
Yeah.
So you can do it's extremely powerful for the little bit of code you actually have to know and write.
Correct.
So it's fun. Alyssa and I are going to have a good time doing it. So make sure you follow the channel and follow us on Twitter, all that good stuff. And we will see you later this week if you're tuning in for other shows. Thanks, Alyssa. Thanks, John, for joining me today.
No worries.
Everybody have a great week. And we'll see you soon.